rocky and there wasn't a whole lot of soil depth. The roots had not grown anything. So when the heat of the sun came up, the plant withers and dies. A third part of the seed fell into where there's weeds along the side of the road and the side of the crops, and just like when you drive around here. It fell into the weeds, and it grew, but the weeds were also growing, and the weeds just overpowered and snuffed out the crop. The fourth set landed in the field, and it grew, and it sprouted, and it grew, and it produced fruit 30, 60, 90 times. It was abundant. And then Jesus walks away. And then we have this little passage where they're saying, what's this all about? And Jesus talks about why he does parables and stuff like that. And then he comes back and say, okay, this is what it means. Do you remember what it means? With that prompting? For the seed that falls on the path. What's he meaning by that?
Hard-headed, hard soil.
Okay. It's the hard-headed, hard soil. We just don't want any part of it. All right? What's the seed that falls in the rocky soil? What happens? What's a good example there?
It's probably most of us.
You don't have enough to pull from. You're going to wither and die.
Yeah, that there's a lot of people that our faith really is shallow. Even, and I said the beauty of this is I can say hard things about the church and none of it's personal because I don't know you yet. But I do know the church. And every church, I've been in big churches and rich churches, I've been in little churches, and every church has the same thing. The people who are faithful to church in the pew, honestly, their faith has not grown since being a child. So yeah, we can sit in church and know church, but when life really, really hits hard, and I've also discovered that life will always hit hard. Sometimes there'll be an illness, sometimes there'll be a child that just goes off the rails, sometimes it'll be just a financial disaster, sometimes it's a work situation. No one escapes those really difficult, take it to the mat times. And if our faith in God isn't solid enough to handle those times when God feels distant, you're praying and you're just not hearing anything back. And you're begging for relief and it's not coming. Your faith has got to be strong to hold through until it does come through. So yeah, a lot of people, good church people, live in rocky soil and it doesn't get deep. How about the weeds?
I think that would just be life around us.
Yes, life. What are some of those weeds? I gotta get my water.
Well, I blame television because there's so many bad things that you hear about and so many, I think I'd hate to be raising a kid these days and seeing what they see on television as being normal.
Okay.
Because it's just so bad.
Of the stuff that's on TV.
The culture, well, just our culture.
The culture.
Yeah.
Social media. Just all of this stuff. I've seen on Facebook one of those just little things that pop up. It said it was 11 things that are now normal. And it talked about, and I just didn't even want to go down that road, but it was talking about the vitriol of, how we just blanket condemn people without even knowing them. We rail, we rant, all that stuff is now normal. Disrespecting our teachers in the classroom, and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think part of those weeds are just culture, and and the one says, okay, the way to get out of this, we've got to shut that all down. Well, you try putting the the camel out of the tent. You know, you try to tell a kid, no, they can't go on social media. That's not working. So part of the weeds would just be that. How about for us as adults, your life? It's what you surround yourself with?
It's those other people, the people you work with.
Exactly.
It's who you're around.
Yeah, it's the people around you and who you choose to be with and the messages you choose to pay attention to. And if you're in with a cluster of friends that are just ranting whatever issue it is and things, you know, it sinks in and you start to get that way. And I've had good friends who just, you know, they worked, I knew them from church and they're great people, but their work situation was one where they just got into all of politics and were just at this constant rage. And my friend, watching on Facebook, he started just mimicking all this rage. In fact, several of them like that. And just, you know, when you surround yourself with that, it overpowers you. What are some other weeds that as adults we face? What are some of the things, and without, you know, you can share at whatever level you want, but what are some of the things that compete with church time, that compete with prayer time, that compete with faith time? Children's sports, exactly. When I drive to church on Sunday morning, we attend the Harrisburg Presbyterian Church. Sunday mornings, we go past ball fields, and you know they are packed with tournaments. You know, and I think every time as we're driving to church, thinking, you know, even if you're a good church family, if you've got a kid on this traveling team, and they want to do that, and you want to encourage, because of course you're a good parent, and their team plays on weekends, well, of course, because to take them out of that, you know, that's, so yes, kids' sports and activities, and you know, as we all know, and we like to lament, back in the good old days, you know, Wednesday nights were church night, you know, which pretty much hands off so churches could do their thing. Well, that's long gone. So yeah, if you've got kids, the reality is that you're competing with their schedules.
Compete with
Work,
work schedules. I mean, they aren't closed on Sundays.
right? Work schedules. And if you are working up, you're not in a position yet when you can call the shots. You work when you're assigned to work. And that could be Sunday weekends, it could be evening stuff.
I remember Blue Laws too, where the only thing open on a Sunday would be a pharmacy. But
Yeah.
you didn't have the malls open or the stores. I mean, so many people I know do their shopping on Sunday morning, like at the grocery.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
that keeps people
There's
away.
nobody there.
Yeah, that's the best time to go shopping because, yeah. So, you know, the weeds grow up around us. And if we're not careful, it's easy for those weeds to just take over. I said, you know, I'm just tired. It's Sunday morning. Yesterday was exhausting. Let's just stay home. In fact, it's just, you know, let's just watch it on Facebook. You know, I gotta be honest with you. I love that. You know, during our first year here, we moved right at the beginning of COVID. And so when I left, my career has been church and fellowship and community and all this stuff, and we had planned for my retirement, you know, big church catered dinner and people coming in and sharing, you know, all sorts of stuff. We were out in the Seattle area where the COVID hit first, and everything shut down. And my last month, I'd planned my sermon series, and it was, you know, to culminate at just the peak of everything and all this stuff. My very last month was to an empty congregation we didn't have figured out how to do this stuff yet. So I had one of the youth in my church had his phone, his iPhone, and we're trying to do that. And preaching is interactive, you know, and when the congregation's asleep, it's really hard to, it's really hard to generate enthusiasm. So having nobody there just sucked the air out of it. My very last Sunday, and last Sunday, my career, last Sunday with this congregation, I've been with them 14 years. It had been a really good run. I just really love those people. We had the camera now, but the camera broke, and it was facing back to the empty congregation. So God, this just sucks. you know, this is a terrible way. So then we moved, couldn't say goodbye to anybody, moved here right as things shut down here. Nothing was open. And so normally, you know, there's certain windows when you can come into a new church, a new community where, oh, you're new, welcome, it's really nice to have you here. Why don't you come join us for such and such? Once that window closes, then it's kind of, oh yeah, you look familiar, but you know. So we missed all of that. And all of this good Southern hospitality, you know, it just was nothing. So we would watch church on the tube. Well, after being in the ministry and having to have to get up early on Sunday mornings, and I'm not a morning person, and having to do that for so many years, my wife and I loved sitting on the couch, still in our PJs, having a cup of coffee, and watching sermons. And we got looking at each other and said, this could get habit for me. We missed the people. And that's, you know, so as things began opening up, and so we ended up at Harrisburg because that's kind of our neighborhood community. But it's easy for life to get busy, for Facebook and things to become convenient, and it just slowly, you just kind of become less and less active. You know, I can tell when someone's disengaging. They'll start up, you know, sitting up here. After a while, they'll be back there. Then they'll be in the back, and then they're gone. You know, they've just quiet quitting sort of thing. So yeah, so weeds can really compete with our faith. What's the fertile soil? Church, faith. How does that grow? Okay, through prayer? I'm sorry, what? Yeah, when you're around others, and you know, when you're by yourself, this is the real fallacy, excuse me, of I don't need the church to be a Christian. Well, technically that's true. But when you're by yourself, and you know, you just sometimes need to be encouraged by others who are growing. Be encouraged by others who are struggling. Be encouraged by others who've gone through the same thing that you're now facing and say, yes, I know exactly how you're feeling. It happened to me too. One of the things that I have loved about being a pastor is just having a congregation that I can work with. This is my first church. I had a young couple whose child died. Just tragic. I don't know what that's like. I've got two boys, I know, but I know adolescent stress. Talk to me about that, and I can talk to you. But I didn't know how to handle that. But I did have this wonderful older couple in the congregation whose child had died, had drowned in their family swimming pool years earlier. But I know that pain never goes away, and those images are seared in your mind's eye. And so I went to Doris and Everett, and I said, may I give them your name? you have been down this road, and their faith is solid to know that God will see them through it. With your permission, can I connect them to you? And of course, absolutely. You know, and they became that. But that's part of what the church is about. You know, when we're going on the faith, on life journey. And there's great times and there are tough times. And when we're doing it alone, those great times can be deceiving and those tough times can be discouraging. When we do it as a family church together, then it just kind of keeps it all in balance. How can we, what Neil said to do at about 10:20, then shift.
He's not here.
Okay, all right, then, good. We can tell stories. Yes, yeah. The trouble is that this will all be on YouTube. You can check up on me. Yeah. Stu, I'm calling from Ireland, and
He won't be surprised.
yeah, I really do get along great because we kind of have similar experiences in churches, similar senses of humor, very similar faith story, and so it's good. But I do want to do that. How does this apply to Rocky River Presbyterian Church? How can we become more fertile soil? Okay, we got to chop down the weeds. That's right. Absolutely. How do we do that? How? And my sermon just is taking this parable and doing a lot, so there's a lot of parallels here. But how do we, your kids are in sports, okay? You can't say no, at least, not this weekend.
But we have to recognize those weeds, and we have to provide ample activities that will compete with that, or that are at different times, or that are in different spots in life,
Mm-hmm.
so that it does provide an alternate.
Yes. Yeah, to whatever that need is, and those needs are legitimate. Those worries are legitimate. Our concerns about finances, you can't say, oh, just don't worry about it. Well, yes, I am worrying about this. Or health issues, oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, so you can't just say, have it go away, but finding an alternative.
Because being a Christian isn't just Sunday morning.
Exactly. Being a Christian is not just your Sunday morning 1 hour, 2 hour gig. Yeah, some are visibly, that they've figured it out, and how to have a faith that's solid and real in the midst of the weeds. In fact, that's going to be my 4th sermon in this series.
Part of that is that we have to pay attention to building our faith and not really worrying so much about the weeds, because at the time of the harvest, he's going to take care of that. He says, don't worry about it, because if you pull up the weeds, you might pull up the wheat.
Okay,
So,
I'm going to have you give my 4th Sunday. That is the parable. The parables, how do we thrive in the weeds? And, you can't just spread Roundup, because you'll kill everything.
this is a big part of surviving in the weeds, is Christian community.
Yes.
Is having other people who share similar path, similar faith.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to put that in. So what? Yeah. No. Yeah, absolutely. It's, kind of like my front yard. And I hope I never become the grumpy old guys that get off my grass. But I do understand, I like having my lawn. And, and the two ways of keeping the weeds out, one is you keep killing the weeds, the other one is you fertilize the grass. And by fertilizing our faith, so when those things come, and so when there is the stress and the unknown, you can say, okay, you're in the hospital room, you don't know if the person's going to survive or not, but you still know that God is good. And you still know that through this, that God will be faithful. And you still know when the bills are piling up and you are really having to make some tough decisions of saying, okay, God is still Lord of the money. God will provide. I need to adjust, So yeah, being able to strengthen our faith enables us to withstand those weeds. And so recognizing what those weeds are, providing alternatives, like that's why youth ministry is so important. And I was a youth pastor for many years and loved it, absolutely loved it. And said, okay, because kids are going to be social and they are going to make their connections. And so if you can provide a context where those connections are ones that are building their faith and they're encouraging each other and you're doing stuff, it's not to be isolated from the world, but it's to give a community in the world so that their friends support that. My little church that I grew up in, my friends from church are still better friends to me than the friends through school. And it's just, and it was Sunday morning and Wednesday night and retreats and fun things and silly things and just being a kid together. So when you provide that, but not only for kids, for seniors, being a retired, man, I'm discovering a whole new world. Being a retiree can be very lonely. If you do not have that community, like I said, we moved here knowing nobody except our two kids. And frankly, our two kids don't want us in their face all the time. That's a hard truth. But not having a community of friends has been really hard for us. And then having the church shut down has been really hard for us. And so being able to provide those kinds of community things for retirees. In my last church, we're right next to a big military base, and so we had military in and out all the time. And we were right next to a big retirement area that just had a lot of people moving in. Well, I had this small group of people at church who kept complaining that we don't have enough children. Got to have you got to have lots of children if you're going to be alive. I was so frustrated because we didn't have children in the community. We had military and we had retirees. We were growing, our church was full of retirees and military. And so we, start, support things for the spouses when they're, and it was usually the husband, but not always, was deployed. And now the spouse is home with the kids, and then the deployed one comes back, and that's traumatic. So we did ministries focused on how to help them bring Christ, make faith real in their context. For the seniors, said, most of them, they moved there because they weren't ready to just sit on the porch in a rocking chair, And seniors are just the most vital resource, underutilized resource in a church, because you still got most of your marbles. You got a life, at least 51%. Yeah. And I recognize, fewer marbles than I used to have, but, you've got life experience, you've got work skill experience to contribute. You've got now a perspective that you didn't have when you were younger. A hunger to be able to share life genuinely. You know, at this point of life, we've all taken our hits. We've all had our failures. We've all had our sorrows. And we don't have to pretend like our 10th year anniversary, reunions where everything's perfect, And there's such a rich opportunity to be with people, whatever life stage they're in. Develop community, bring Christ into it, have the Holy Spirit be that glue that ties it together, have Scripture be the focus that unites us. And it's amazing what fertile ground can grow. I think a lot of times churches are looking for what they don't have and miss the ground that they do have. And I have found when you focus on who God has provided and provide Christ to them, that your church grows and multiplies. And I think for this church and every other church, that can be our fertile soil. Ooh, right on time. So, I need to finish getting my stuff ready. Thank you for this interactive conversation. I love this. I love this. I had a Wednesday or Thursday morning Bible study thing at my last church. When I got there, there was 4 or 5 faithful ones. By the time I left, we had 35 in there, and it was just going through the Bible and just reading it. What is God saying to you? And it was amazing. But all retirees, bringing in perspective, questions I'd never thought of, insights. It was marvelous. Marvelous. Would one of you like to close us in prayer? One of my hallmarks is the pastor isn't the only one that can pray. So would someone offer to close us in prayer?